Good morning, Galaxians, and welcome to another live edition of the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. In fact, the last live one of the year. Just a reminder, next Wednesday is Christmas, and the following Wednesday is New Year's Day, so there won't be shows either of those days. We won't be back until January the 8th, so let's enjoy this one. Let's make it a good one. I hope everybody's having a great holiday. I see some comments in the chat about how sales are going, so we'll talk about that here in a minute. And this show is going to be just kind of a quick recap of my first 2 months over on Whatnot. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, what my observations have been, what my experience has been, how I see myself using the platform going forward, how I'm using it, and how that's impacting my results versus what others see. So there's a lot of ground to cover there. So we're going to definitely get into that. If you have any questions, I'll preface the whole thing by saying I'm not here professing to be any kind of an expert on Whatnot after whatever it's been, 10, 12 shows, and in using it in the way I use it. And I'm coming at it from the perspective of someone who is selling books. So my experience is quite different from someone who's selling, sportswear or shoes or trading cards. So bear all that in mind as we go through this. Some of the observations that I've had from watching some of those shows probably still apply, but just bear those caveats in mind. Before we get into that, let me say some good mornings here. KG's Unique, Rare, and Antique Books. Hello. Just got back into selling books on Whatnot and having amazing success. Perfect. That's awesome. Do share in the chat. Kind of walk us through a little bit what you're doing, what kind of success you're having, what your definition of success is, because mine, as we will get into here, might be quite different from some others. So we'll get into that in a little bit here as well. Den Decor Depot, good morning. Sales are starting to tail a little bit, but still a strong month here. I have noticed, I was talking to somebody yesterday, that things over the next week will probably tail off quite a bit because now we're into that time, kind of the dead zone in terms of shipping to get things to where they need to be by Christmas. So this next week or so, I would expect to be fairly average to mediocre. Last night was really good. I had 12 orders when I woke up this morning, which is about on pace. I mentioned, I think in the last full episode, I'm actually still trending for a record December. So knock wood, with whatever it is, 12 days, 13 days to go. December has really been good for me as well. Big Dre just finished his coffee. I've got some right here. As per usual, I've not been sleeping particularly well, so the coffee is a must-have. Black Cat Flips, good morning. Media Picker, Brandon, hello, welcome from work. Chuck Witt, good morning. Haven't seen you here in a bit. Mel Flips, good morning. And one last from Recommerce Dave, good morning from Australia. Black Cat Flips, sales have been good and steady, but waiting for the drop-off as we get closer to Christmas. Yeah, I would expect really today probably to be kind of the last day where I expect reasonably good numbers for kind of the foreseeable future. And then once Christmas has passed and people start getting those gift cards, and travel has ended, as I've talked about on the show pretty regularly. January, for me, historically has been my best month of the year, so I'm pretty stoked to see what that holds. Big Dre says 0 sales and 2 returns yesterday, totaling $84 plus shipping. Ouch. Refunded them both and told them not to return the items as they're not wasting any more time or money on. I actually did the same thing on one last night, although to be fair, my item was $3.74. So it wasn't worth, it was something that had to ship ground advantage. It was going to cost like $6 and some change to get it back to me. And I was just like, just throw it away. I'm not interested, for $3. Den Decor Depot says this may be a record month period. Awesome. November was the best ever and almost at those numbers already. Awesome. That is really, really good. KG's Unique, Rare, and Antique Books. I sell on antique books on Whatnot. It's really important to do a little marketing, following other book buyers and sellers, sharing your show to potential customers via messages, and so on. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. We'll start with that point. There is, it seems like a very, very good community building on Whatnot for books, book sellers, book buyers. I have I've only been on there a couple of months and I've got 130 some odd followers already. Um, and there is definitely a sense of community. People definitely want to participate and share each other's shows and attend each other's shows, which is really, really good. Obviously, we had Max from Common Ground Finds on about, what was it, 2 months ago. And I'm going to kind of compare and contrast what he's doing versus what I'm doing as we go through this. So, my observations would be that it can be, depending on what you're selling, it can be a very, very good platform. Um, we talked about when Max was here, kind of the fast nickel versus the slow dime. And that is definitely how I'm feeling about Whatnot after a couple of months of not only selling, but observing a lot of other shows. There are there are unfortunately there are some sellers that I see that are selling virtually nothing, and part of it is that they're not doing what he just mentioned. They're not doing the networking, they're not showing up on other people's shows, they're not making their presence felt. And some of them are bringing uh, undesirable or overpriced and undesirable merchandise to their shows, and they're not presenting very dynamic shows. And if that is kind of the situation that you're in, if you're not wanting to do kind of the participatory live, I've seen everything from, people really over the top to where mine's a little more low key, but I've got a lot of higher production value. If you're not going to bring something to the conversation through either the items that you're bringing, the show that you're doing, or the networking, I think you'll probably struggle on Whatnot. All of that having been said, it is very much fast nickel. If you've got a bunch of inventory that you have very low cost of goods in that you want to move, it looks to me to be, regardless of the category, a very good way to do that. But even the best sellers that I see on there are probably not getting maximum dollar for what they sell, whether it's sneakers, sportswear, books. I'm consistently seeing, again, particularly newer sellers, you bring a $30, $40, $50 book to a Whatnot show, and your show is attended by 3 or 4 people, there's a really good chance you're going to sell that book for whatever your opening bid is, which if it's $1 or $2, that is lost, obviously, revenue opportunity. You sold it, and if you didn't have much cost of goods sold in it, you made a little bit of money. For my part, that is not yet where I'm at on Whatnot. I'm not willing to do that. I would rather wait a bit. I've got enough inventory in my main platforms where if I've got a $30 or $40 book, I'd like to maximize the profit potential and the revenue potential from that book rather than taking the chance of selling it for less. And that's based partly on the availability of inventory for me as well. Max, when he was on the show, talked about having bought 40 pallets of books. If you've got that much inventory at a very low cost, you'd be very willing to just pop it on there and move through it and get 50, 70, 80 cents on the dollar potential money versus listing it on eBay or Amazon and maybe waiting a couple of months or longer to get that. That's not the position that I'm in. So I'm taking mostly kind of that lower value stuff, say under $12, to my Whatnot shows. In a lot of cases, it's items that I would not have even listed previously over there, which is what's going to make these numbers sound they're good for me. I'm defining what I'm doing on Whatnot so far as a success, but when you hear the total numbers, you'll be like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So, but I've taken, probably 75% of the stuff that I've sold so far are books that I would not have bothered to list on eBay because the value just wasn't high enough. These are $6, $8 free shipping type books that I probably would have just donated. And now I'm able, through Whatnot, to take them out there, get a little bit of money for them, recoup my initial investment, maybe make a few pennies, get some cash flow going. So that's kind of the approach that I've taken to Whatnot. And where I see it going is allowing me to, and when you do these bulk buys, obviously you get some lower value stuff with the good stuff, and I will continue to try to move some of that low to mid value stuff on Whatnot while the higher value stuff still goes to eBay and Etsy. And then over time, as my shows grow, as my audience grows, I'll be a little more confident to take better and better stuff over there. So in terms of actual business results, in 2 months on Whatnot, I have sold 256 books, which is by quantity my second best platform over that time. Dollar volume, however, $552. So it's a little over $2 a copy. My first handful of shows were a bunch of $1 start paperbacks where I didn't have much of an audience and I was selling $1 paperbacks. So that has definitely skewed that number. But over the course of these 2 months, I'm already seeing where I'm getting more people at my shows and generating a little more money. The books that I would have sold for $1 or $2 previously are now selling for $3, $4, $5, $10. I had a show the other night that actually broke the $100 mark. So things are moving in the right direction. And again, that'll afford me an opportunity to move more higher dollar value items onto Whatnot and be able to flip out of them and make a little bit of money and not lose as much. I'm not trying to lose 80% of a book's potential revenue just to flip it. But if I could get to a point where I could make 70 or 80% of its revenue and get out of it and get the cash, that I would probably do. So that's kind of the plan. That's where I'm at. To be fair, over that 2 months time span, Whatnot has outperformed Mercari by about 40%. So that is interesting as well. Obviously, the profit margins aren't quite as good there because the individual selling prices are so low, but it does give you the indication that Whatnot potentially could be pretty good volume, both in terms of transactions and in terms of dollars, which in turn would lead to positive cash flow. So do I recommend Whatnot? Yes, with some caveats. Again, like I said, you've got to be willing to put in the work to have either good merchandise that you're willing to take a little bit less for and do that networking, do that marketing, send out those messages, post it on Instagram, do all that legwork to get people to your shows because that's the only way it's going to work. And you've got to be comfortable enough to at least be talking on camera, if not being on camera yourself. In order to be successful over there. So that's kind of my take. I think you can make money there. I know there are sellers that are making great money. Again, Max is a good example. Common Ground Finds is just killing it over there. Though, again, the caution being, even on his best days, the stuff that I see, if I look at the comps on eBay for some of the stuff he's selling, he's not getting what you would call quote unquote full retail value for them. He's getting sometimes 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe 80% of what he could get. But in his business model, where he's got 40 pallets of stuff to get through, he's generating cash flow, he's moving inventory, and he's making good money because he's got low cost of goods sold. That's not the position that I'm in here. So we have very different approaches, both of which I think meet our various business goals. And I think my business will probably move in his direction over time. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. Let me know in the chat what you think of all that. And let me get back, speaking of, into the chat here and see what we got. Big Dre. Today, I sold 2 pairs of Converse for $120 plus shipping. So money goes out and money comes in. Returns are easier to deal with if you have steady sales. Absolutely. And again, to be fair, it depends on the category you're in, what you even run into in terms of returns. That return request I had yesterday was the first one I've had in like 6 months. So KG's unique, rare, and antique books. Whatnot has a unique aspect of building community and a high rate of returning customers. That is true. I've found already from my very first show, I have people that are coming back every show. Sometimes they're just popping in, like my science fiction crowd. I've got people that pop in on Wednesday when I do just like regular vintage books that have no interest in that category, but at least pop in to watch a little bit of the show and say hello. I had commented when I first started talking about Whatnot that I was shocked to learn that the average Whatnot customer was buying like 11 items in whatever the time frame was. I've literally had a customer buy 11 items in one show. So that's where that number comes from. And part of that is, again, kind of curating a show, cultivating an audience, and then kind of low start prices. You got $2, $3 books or whatever. a person can come in and afford to buy 2, 3, 5 of those at those prices. And if things start to bid up, they just work their way out and you end up making money. That's the kind of the beauty of the auction format. So definitely potential there to build an audience, build returning business, build repeat business. Again, I've got multiple people in just this short window of time that are showing up and in some cases buying almost every week. Paper Gold, speaking of, says, let's get it. Hello. Half of the sellers flourish on Whatnot and half struggle. Yes, I reached out to one actually the other day. She was in her show literally by herself and was visibly upset about the fact that there was nobody there. And she even said, into the stream, it was just on my phone. I wasn't actually on her show. And I heard her say something about, I'm so discouraged. And I just went in to encourage her. I'm like, this is hard. It takes some time and effort to develop an audience. And I see people that are not doing some of the things we've already talked about to try to build that audience, that are not whatever, if I'm scrolling through and I see you on your screen looking sad and forlorn and disappointed, I'm unlikely to go to your show because that's not the experience I think most people want. They want something that's either well produced or high energy or has got really good stuff in it. And if you're not able to convey those things in your thumbnail and through what you're doing on the show, I think you're really going to struggle there. To be fair, that's probably true on most platforms. Half the people are killing it and half the people are struggling because they don't do the things they have to do. They don't take good pictures. They don't do quality listings. They don't make sure their item specifics are right. I looked at one today, working on comps. I pulled up a book, looked like a reasonable comp. I opened the item specifics and literally everything is referring to another book. Wrong author, wrong title, wrong publisher, wrong date. Every single thing was incorrect. Will that person eventually maybe sell that book? Yeah, they will, but they've made it really hard on themselves by not taking the time to do it right. Not to be up on my soapbox today, but those are the things you have to do, whether it's Whatnot, eBay, Etsy, Mercari. You've got to do those things correctly to give yourself a fighting chance because there's so many sellers and so much merchandise. Paper Gold says surpassed 100K on Whatnot this year. That is fantastic. Where's my applause button? There we go. That is awesome. Congratulations. If I could get my business, and again, my approach to Whatnot is very different. I'm not trying to replace eBay or get anywhere close to it. But if I could get to a point where Whatnot would do even $1,000 or $1,500 a month for me as supplementary income to what I'm already doing, that would be fantastic. I would be all over that. So, but congratulations, 100K over there is terrific. Recommerce Dave, how has your sourcing changed due to Whatnot, picking up hauls which have a large proportion of lower value books? No, it like I talked about a week or two ago, I passed on an estate buyout because it was mostly low value stuff. And I don't mind, like I said, if it's a 50-50 split, if I go into an estate and I think half of it is worth selling, listing on eBay, Etsy, and Whatnot, and the other half is kind of duds, some of which maybe in the past I would have tried to lot up and some of which would have ended up donating, I probably would have bought the lot anyway. Now, with Whatnot, I just have another outlet to try to do something with those books. And again, if they bring $2, if I've got 50 cents in them, I get rather than donating it, I get my 50 cents back. Plus, after fees, maybe I make a quarter or 50 cents. So I'm money ahead to do that. The numbers don't look great. 256 sales for $555, but that is $550 odd that I would not have had previously, in addition to the write-off of that kind of dead inventory that now has generated at least a little bit of cash. So for me, that feels like a win. The numbers aren't huge, but they're positive. So yeah, it wouldn't have changed my sourcing. I'm not going to pick up a huge lot of duds just with the idea that I'll try to sell them on Whatnot and bust out of them. But the ones that previously would have been in the donation pile now are going to get a second life, at least an opportunity to sell over on Whatnot. Den Decor Depot, that's the same view I have of Depop. A lot of sub $10 vintage stuff on there. Things are getting views where I'm getting 0 on eBay. I've commented before, I don't know that I trust eBay's view counts all that well. I've got items that have watchers that show 0 views, which seems like it should be almost impossible to be the case. So, but I hear that a lot from people on Depop that and similarly on Mercari, lots of likes, which would seem to indicate interest, but it doesn't always turn into sales. So yeah, that is not an uncommon thing I hear over there. KG's Unique, Rare, and Antique Books, your art book show was a great success. It was. That one exceeded my pretty mediocre expectations. I sold, I think, 16 out of the 20 books, some of which went for more than the starting price of $2. So that was a really, really good show. I also picked up a bunch of followers. It has led me now to setting aside additional art books. I did a show a couple of weeks ago. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, the category did not work. It was photography books. I tried it, didn't sell, I don't think, a single thing the entire show, 0 for 20. I won't probably do another photography book show, at least not anytime soon because I've got so much other stuff. But the art book show, fantastic. I have new followers who are specifically looking for those types of books, some of whom have already messaged me about when the next art book show is going to be. So that was, again, that ticks all the boxes. I sold a bunch of books that probably would have been donated, generated some money, busted out of some stuff, got some new followers, some new fans, some people that will show up and probably buy at future shows. That show was fantastic. Even though, income-wise, it was probably just over $100. But that is kind of building towards the future. Land Shark Picker, good morning. Stumbled onto a few of your book listings when pulling comps and listing some antique books. I bet I pop up occasionally with 11,000 plus listings. Here's a funny story. I don't know if I told this. So I was comping a book, and the first listing that I saw was actually by my ex-wife. So I reached out to her and sent her a message. I'm like, hey, I just comped you on this book. I'm going to undersell you by $1. And somehow yet she sold hers first. But anyway, Big Dre says, I came across a Whatnot hater channel called Vad is Rad. She discussed scammers and bad Whatnot practices. I've only been there 2 months, and I've not experienced any issues on Whatnot in terms of scammers. I know that they've got a whole help section dedicated to how to eliminate trolls from your channel and your shows and whatever. I've not had that personal experience, but I'm sure there are issues, as there are on all sites, with people like that. Again, everybody's experience is different. I'm not going to let 1 or 2 problematic buyers give me a problem over there, but I can see where that could get to be an issue. Hollywood Reseller, it can be tough to build an audience and support on Whatnot. Some just expect to receive but don't support back. Yes, and that's why I've made it a point to at least a couple of times a day I get on and I see who's on and I pop into the shows, and sometimes I just pop in and say hello. I'll spend 5 or 10 minutes there. Maybe I'll comment, have a little chat, and then get out. To do that kind of networking, to be present for other people as well. I'm probably not a buyer on most of those shows because I've already got so much stuff. I don't really need any more, but just to support the effort. I've got people that are coming to my shows that are not buyers. They're there to support and show appreciation, and then they jet, and that's totally fine. I absolutely appreciate that. Just to show up and hang out helps a Whatnot seller. Absolutely. I commented on that a couple of weeks ago. If I'm scrolling through my feed and I see 2 science fiction book shows, and one of them shows 2 people in the show and the other one shows 22 people in the show, which one, just human nature, which one are you going to go to? You're going to go to the one that has the most activity, because you would believe but that's got either better books or is a better show or whatever the case is. So having that support, whether those people are necessarily buyers or not, is so important just in attracting additional people into your effort. Land Shark Picker says, VAD is crazy. I know there's some great whatnot sellers out there, but there are also just as many scammer rule breakers, etc. as well. Again, I have no experience with that from either side as a buyer or a seller on whatnot. That's, again, you could make that case on every platform. I see people all the time. Their entire YouTube channel is about eBay scammers. So I'm sure that is true. Again, I talked about this, gosh, it's probably been a couple of years ago, but very early in my retail career, we were in an executive meeting, and I was a new store manager, and everybody was talking about, ways to prevent shoplifting and shrink, the industry term for lost inventory. And it went round and round and round. And finally, the owner of the company stood up and said, we cannot run our business based on the 1% of the people or less that are trying to scam us. If we run it based on the 99% that are actually there to support us and purchase from us, the 1% will take care of itself. And that ended the conversation. And that has always stuck with me. If I get a bad buyer or someone that I think is a scammer, I can't let it ruin my day. I can't let it impact how I do my business. Will I block that person? Absolutely. I don't want to deal with that person again. Okay, you got me, whatever. The case on this one from yesterday, it's a $3.74 item. Why? I don't think somebody's trying to scam me on that, but theoretically, I could just block that person and not have to worry about that happening in the future. But it's not gonna, it didn't ruin my night, hasn't ruined my morning. It's not impacting the types of things I list or the way I do my business, and it shouldn't any of yours either, in my opinion. Big Dre says, Land Shark Picker, a lot of profanity on that channel too. Whoops. Yep. I am a notorious swearer. It's sometimes very hard on this show to bite my tongue. Bill Wilkinson, we were the ones buying $10 books in a show. Yep, absolutely. And that's super cool. It saves everybody money. It saves you money on shipping. Although I will comment, Whatnot is making a killing on shipping with the way their shipping profiles are set up. They already charge a little bit over what I think the actual media mail rate is for a book. And because of the way their business policies are set up, their shipping policies, they add everything together in a combined shipment, and their weights always end up far too high. And even if you go in as a seller and adjust down to the actual weight, they do not refund the buyer for that difference. So as a buyer, be aware of that. I think most people probably know that already and factor it in when they're looking at making a purchase. Okay, shipping is going to be more than it would be somewhere else. So instead of buying this book for $5, I'm willing to offer $4 and then I'm out, kind of thing. But shipping is got to be a huge revenue driver for Whatnot based on how it's set up. Bill Wilkinson, my wife and I enjoy your show. Thank you. I appreciate that. I said, I think last week, I'm probably over the top with the 3-camera setup and then all the little graphics and sounds, but I'm trying to do something a little bit different that I don't see anybody else doing. Again, in that notion of trying to set myself apart. The books I bring are just regular science fiction or art books. There's nothing spectacular about most of them. But if I can create a show that people want to come in and hang out and watch whatever the goofy graphic is going to be, that's a win. So, but thank you. I appreciate it very much. Media Picker, I can't wait to do Whatnot. Just have to get more organized first, maybe sometime next year. And it is. We'll talk about that a little bit. There are a variety of ways that I see sellers doing even books on Whatnot. Some of them they'll have 3 or 4 listings with 20 or 30 items in, and it's by the pound. So they'll have these are science fiction books up to 2 pounds and science fiction books up to 4 pounds and whatever. And they'll just cycle through those books live. There are no photos in the shop. They'll just show them, and does anybody want me to run this? And I'll run it, and then they sell it and move on to the next. I'm taking another approach. I'm really trying to curate a show. I'll have multiple books by the same author, in a show, trying to capture people that might be whatever, Isaac Asimov or CJ Cherry fans, if you're a science fiction fan. And I'll try to have 2 or 3 books by that same person in that show so somebody can make combined purchases and grab some stuff and save some money. And I'm doing, a photo and a description and doing all that prep work. So I'm spending, for a 20 book show, I might spend 45 minutes in advance pulling, sorting the 20 books that I want to work with, creating those listings. They only get one photo. I'm not going full crazy like I do over on eBay because I'm going to show the book in the show. So I don't feel it's necessary to have all those photos. So you've got that kind of all that prep work that goes into it. So maybe call it an hour max to do a 20 book show, which takes me on average about an hour because, again, I'm doing some production stuff. I'm reading the blurb on the back or from the dust jacket. I'm talking to people. I got my goofy sounds and I run every book. I don't say at least on the first pass through, do you want me to run this or not? And nobody even comments. I just go ahead and run them. So I've got, 15 seconds there while the book is running and maybe nobody buys it on the first pass. So you got an hour there. And then depending on what you sell, 20, 30, 45 minutes to ship. So, a 20 book show might cost you 3 hours of time. Is it worth it? For me, so far, it has been. And more to the point, you've got to enjoy kind of the process. You got to enjoy being on the show and chatting with the people and, reading the blurbs and holding up the books and that whole thing. There's a certain element of the live show that you've got to be interested in doing, especially if you're at the lower end of the value chain, to make that thing work. Miss Lachey, good morning. Welcome. Good to see you as always. Better late than never. Mel flips it. When is your next art book show so I can watch? This is such valuable info. Thank you. I appreciate that. It is going to probably be, I've actually got it scheduled now that I think about it. I want to say it's the first week of January, maybe January 8th. I'd have to look. I think that's right. I think it's January 8th. If it's not the 8th, it'll be the 15th. It is a minimum of 20 art books. I think those are already loaded, in fact. And then I'll be doing, if I accumulate a few more, I may add those to the show since it's almost a month out, 3 weeks out. Mel had also asked about how I evaluate art books. Like if I'm going at a sale, do I do anything different with art books than I would do maybe with regular books? And the only thing I try to watch for, I guess, with art books is when I'm comping is to think about what the weight of some of those books is going to be. Some of those big coffee table art books, you comp it on eBay and it's a $10 free shipping book and it's an 8-pound book. You can't ship it for what that person is asking for it. So that's kind of the only thing that I kind of am cautious about is what the weight, how that's going to factor into what the actual selling price can be. But other than that, I treat those books the same as I treat any others. Same thing in a bulk purchase situation. The big 1,800 book purchase that I did, probably a third of that was art books. But I looked at enough of them while I was there to know that there was going to be some books there that had some value. That was, again, that 50-50 split for me. There was going to be some stuff there that I knew I was going to be able to list on eBay and Etsy and maximize some potential $15, $20, $30, $40 or more. I've got one listed that is significantly higher than that. So that's kind of the strategy of going in and looking at those big lots. But the only other thing, again, that I consider really with art books is the weight factor, which is in sometimes quite a bit. Re-commerce Dave says she probably did a deep cut offer to move that book. You never know. Lord Jake Ryan, good morning. It's just like Twitch, where people stream playing video games. New people with no following have few people watching. It takes time to get a good following. Good content also helps. Right. Again, doing something, either doing what you do like super, super well, or doing something different than others that will attract attention. I've had probably in more than half my shows, someone has commented in the chat that this is one of the higher production value shows they've seen, on Whatnot. And that's the kind of stuff that registers. That's a comment that someone else will take to their friends and share a show with their friends. And hey, you've got to come see what's going on over here. Again, even if they're not buyers, those are people, that's activity. And much like listing on eBay or sending offers, activity breeds activity. So anything that you can do to set yourself apart. And again, the networking piece, if you're on Twitch, you should be probably going to other people's streams as well and chatting and saying hello. And even if you're only there for 5 minutes and you pop back out, just making sure your presence is noticed. I know Kat, the Nurse Flipper on YouTube, she commented about this on one of her live streams. This was months ago I was watching. And she said when she started her channel, she spent hours every night going to other reselling YouTube channels and commenting, sharing information, sharing her thoughts, sharing tips, tricks, answering questions. And that kind of network has led her to fantastic success on YouTube. And she's a classic example of what you can do if you will kind of get yourself out there, make yourself useful, not just be a nuisance. Hey, come to my show. Here's my link, but be helpful, answer questions, ask questions, participate in conversations. And that is a surefire ticket to growth. Again, as opposed to just leaving your link everywhere, which is just spammy. Judy, Stop and Shop. I was literally thinking eBay had trained our brains to work on any platform because everything you can imagine could happen to you eventually will happen to you on eBay, whether from eBay or buyers. Yes. And eBay has been at it again this week. There's already multiple posts about things going on over there with the addition of some AI FAQ stuff today. And again, it's Q4. Why are we messing with these platforms? Just let us sell and ship for the next week. And then, if you want to make some changes, please do. 5, W and Hall, good to see you. I might be late to this, but I just noticed eBay is putting $5 coupon codes in some of my listings. I had not seen that. That's interesting. Are they funding the 5%? I know Etsy is famous for that. They will run a promotion giving whatever $5 off 30 or a 5% off, and that's a promotion that they fund rather than something that you are supposed to fund. They also obviously they want you to participate in their various sales, and that's one where they force you to take a certain level of discount. But I've not seen that on eBay. If anybody else has noticed that, let us know in the chat. Re-commerce Dave, how does postage work for sellers in the US and Australia? Sellers have to buy the postage labels but don't get the funds until payout 10 days later. Are you talking about Whatnot specifically? We do not see the funds and we do not pay for the shipping on Whatnot unless you have miscalculated and underestimated the shipping, and then there's a chargeback, or you are doing some kind of a giveaway or a discounted shipping promotion where there might be an additional charge for shipping, and you're responsible for that. In one of my first shows, I did a giveaway, and I had to pay the incremental shipping on that item added to that person's combination of purchases. So, but the average, one person comes in and buys one book, they pay shipping to Whatnot. Whatnot provides you with the label based on the information that you put in. You print the label and ship the thing. You never see any of that money either coming or going here in the U.S. Black Cat Flips, you cursing? Can't picture us. Give us some video outtakes. So there were a bunch the other day. So the Monday podcast, I literally started that show 5 times because my system kept crashing. The mic would just randomly turn off. I was so mad that I almost did not do the show. It was what should have taken 40 or 45 minutes to record took me 2.5 hours because I would get so far in and then everything would just stop working. I was swearing like a drunken sailor for a while. Dendecorp Depot says Ryan sold cars in a previous life. 4-letter words were the lexicon. That is absolutely true. I even learned some new ones when I was doing that, which was interesting. Jeff Zenick, howdy, howdy. Good to see you. Thanks for coming by. Thanks, yes, referring to Whatnot from Recommerce Dave. Yep, yep. Um, it's that is also very interesting to me, and we talk about that here quite a bit, how differently many of these platforms operate in different parts of the world, different policies, different procedures, some of which are probably controlled by government regulation, but just the differences in how even fees or shipping is handled from Europe to the UK to Asia to the US. I mean, it's like completely different formats of how they operate their business, which always has struck me as really, really unusual. But I suppose it makes sense. There are things that you expect or are willing to accept in some parts of the world that you wouldn't in others. Just as a random example, tipping is a way of life here in the U.S. in the restaurant business, and in a lot of the rest of the world, that's not even a thing. They they don't even like the whole tipping thing. So it's really interesting. I am going to hit this coffee here. So what's your listing plan over the holidays? I'm considering just scheduling drafts to fire between Christmas and New Year's. I will probably just continue to do my normal. I will be out of town on Christmas Day, so I probably won't do any listings Christmas Day. New Year's Day, I'll probably do some in the morning before football games get started. Um, I'm scheduled normally here lately. I've been trying to do 160 to 180 listings, which is where I've scheduled for this week. Next week, I think I've got it down to maybe 120 because of the day off. I'll probably work a half a day, Christmas Eve day. I did a shorty in terms of my listing plan for Monday because I snuck in another Whatnot show. I've got a kind of a military and espionage show that I'm going to do Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern, try something in the middle of the day. So I wanted to kind of squeeze that in. So I cut back my listing plan for that day because I'm going to lose several hours getting that show done. So I will probably continue to work through kind of that middle period of the holidays. Christmas Day, I won't do anything. New Year's Day, maybe a half day. And then it'll just be right back to normal. That gets us caught up in the chat. Let me know if you have anything else you would like to discuss. There's always plenty of stuff going on in the world of reselling. It's always messy. Chuck Witt says, you probably have talked about this before, but can you give your take or experience with Facebook Marketplace now or on a future show? This will be quick and easy. As a seller, I don't use it. I think the only thing I've sold on Facebook Marketplace was a couple of boxes of bulk CDs. I have used Craigslist a couple of times for similar kind of mass, 40, 80, 100, whatever CDs that were of no value to me that I ended up selling a bunch to a guy who runs a flea market shop with old CDs. But I don't sell on Facebook Marketplace. As a buyer, I'm on there probably every day looking for opportunities to source quantities of stuff. The big science fiction purchase that I talk about over the last couple of weeks that was up in Barberton, Ohio, which is in the kind of Cleveland, Akron area. And I'm down in Cincinnati. It was a 3.5 hour drive, but I found those books on Facebook Marketplace and reached out and ended up negotiating a deal where I ended up with 515 books for $350, which was a win for both of us. He didn't want to mess with them. I wanted the inventory, both for Whatnot and for, kind of traditional eBay, Etsy, whatever. So that worked out. So as a sourcing opportunity, I'm probably on there daily. Now, I don't find a ton of stuff. That's the only one in the last couple of months that I've actually been able to put together. But for me, it's been better on that side. I haven't used it as a seller. As is the case with most of these platforms, you see a lot of people complaining about scammers, about people not showing up. Facebook Marketplace, a lot of people don't ship. It's all local meetup, and people don't end up coming out or whatever. So I have just avoided it kind of altogether from that side of the equation. Media Picker says Facebook Marketplace has a bunch of idiots on there. I've seen some people trying to sell individual baseball cards from the junk wax era for $1,500 when the card is worth 50 cents. I've got one that keeps popping up in my feed. A guy has it's the Rise and Fall of the Third Reich from like 1962 or whatever. I think it's Robert Shire was the author. It's a $10, $12 book. It's one I would pick up if I was at an estate sale and I saw a hardcover copy of that from the early 1960s, first printing or not, and they wanted a buck or two. I would absolutely buy it and list it and sell it. This guy has this listing as a historically significant book, and he's asking $80 for it. And I'm like, good try. I mean, and you see that on eBay as well. You'll look at a list of comps on a book and, you'll see a lot of whatever, 10, 12, 15, gradually the prices will increase. And then you've got these outliers at the top end where people are asking, $100 or $150 for a book that is selling all day long for $10 or $12. And I'm like, why? What are you trying to do with that? I know a lot of people say there's like money laundering going on with some of those really high value books that are not high value. But that's just weird to me. Why would you do that? Maybe just actual ignorance, just not knowing what the value of it is. You see this book and you think, oh, that's a really rare and unusual book. And you don't look and see that on eBay, there's 100 of them currently listed for $10 or less. I don't know, but which can be a problem even for regular sellers on some of these platforms. Doing the research, not as you're out shopping, not doing the comps, not figuring out, especially for new sellers, which things are really valuable and which things are not. You see a lot of people that make initially a lot of bad buys because they just don't know how to do the research. And some people get burned and grow and learn, and other people get burned and get frustrated and end up not doing this anymore. To the point that was made earlier about half the people on Whatnot struggling. I would venture to guess there's a lot of people that have given Whatnot a month, 6 weeks, not come in with any kind of real plan on how they wanted to do it, not spending any time there, observing how other people are doing it and finding kind of a pathway to what they would define as success. And again, that's different for everybody. My vision of success on Whatnot is probably not to be common grounds at 100,000 a year. But if I could do $10, $15, or $20,000 a year, that would be a huge win for me in my business model. So knowing what you want to achieve on any of these platforms and then figuring out how to get there, super important. And a lot of people, I just feel like, don't do that legwork. Again, I'll get off my soapbox. It is my show, right? I can do that once in a while. Media Picker says, I've seen some comps on CDs ranging from $2 to $200 on eBay. It's crazy. You've got to do your research. Absolutely. Recommerce Dave, true about the differences. Australia is still in beta mode with just card traders, so postage on light items is okay, but on heavier items, it will be interesting to see how sellers cope with upfront costs. Yes. I was talking about something the other day. I think it was the eBay shipping glitch, where eBay was recommending that you void labels that were inadvertently printed with the hazmat logo on them, and then buying a new label. Well, all that money was coming out of your available funds on eBay. Were you getting the credit back right away for the void, or are you having to wait a week, or as is the case on pirate ship, sometimes up to 30 days for that label to not register as having been used before you got your credit? That stuff adds up. This is, like most businesses, this is a really cash flow sensitive business. Most of us aren't working with, hundreds of thousands of dollars tucked away in savings to make ends meet. To be frank, it's one of the reasons that I ended up in books, because you can buy large quantities of books for fairly low outlays of cash. Just to give you a current example, at retail value, my current listed retail value of everything I have on eBay, when it's not on sale, is just short of $200,000 at retail. I have about $7,000 total tied up in all of that inventory. So obviously, great opportunity to buy thousands of dollars worth of merchandise for, in some cases, dozens of dollars or even free. Katie Reeds is famous for her free 99, does a book pickup service and just gets hundreds of books that she's not paying anything for. So pure cash flow, again, if you're assuming you're willing to do the work and get the listings and sell the stuff. But yeah, cash flow is king when it comes to this. And to go full circle back to where the show started with Whatnot, it is absolutely an opportunity to generate quick additional cash flow, maybe at the expense of a little bit of revenue and profit potential. But if you're in a position where you really need some cash flow, are you willing to take 60 cents on the dollar of what the value would be to sell it today rather than sell it 6 weeks from now? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Again, that comes back to your individual kind of business decision. Recommerce Dave says, yes, sell 20 books to 20 different buyers, and you were looking at approximately $200 Australian in postage. Ouch. Yeah, that's a big chunk. And again, here in the US, not on Whatnot, on other sites, you're responsible for buying your postage. Now, it depends on how you're set up. As I've talked about, I charge shipping for everything, whether it's on Mercari and it's built into the price, or whether it's on these other sites and it is added on. So it's a $10.99 book plus shipping. So that money is coming into me. Yes, there's a couple day lag before it's available to me, but I'm doing enough volume on a consistent enough basis where I'm not falling behind, not to mention the fact that I put all my postage on a credit card over at Pirate Ship to capture the points, which nets me usually $50 a month in extra income based on the points that I get for spending that. So I accumulate that money. I set it aside as the month goes on. The bill comes, the 27th or whatever of the month, and I just pay the thing off and get on to the next. But yeah, if you're doing free shipping, and you need to be cautious about building it in and knowing what that's actually going to cost you, because it can get super expensive. On the eBay coupon code on my items, 5W and Hall says it's for Venmo, apparently. Interesting. So I bet either they or Venmo might be funding that. How long ago was it they added Venmo? It was this year when they added that, and they may be trying to push that, as they seem to think that's their ticket to getting like the millennials and the Gen Zs, their big Venmo users, to come to eBay to shop. So maybe that's a enticement that they're offering directed specifically at those people through that one payment source. It looks like the last of the comments in the chat. We're at about 55 minutes. So if you have anything else you'd like to discuss, let me know in the chat. We'll give it another 5 or 10 minutes. And then I got a dog that needs walked and lunch that needs made and more listings to do and a Whatnot show to get ready for tonight. If you're available tonight at 7 o'clock, I've got, I think it's 25 biographies, ranging from, I think, the 1930s and 40s up through maybe the early 2000s. But everything in that lot tonight will be a biography. So if that's your jam, even if it's not, you just want to hang out, come hang out. 7 o'clock Eastern over on Whatnot. I think everything tonight is hardcover. I do have some shows coming up over the next month that are a mix of hardcover and paperback, but I think tonight everything is hardcover. Again, let me know if you have anything else you would like to discuss in the chat. 5W and Hall, yeah, the Venmo thing, yep. So I hope everybody is having a good season. I'm still hearing from people that business is kind of tough for some folks. Obviously, a couple of people commented earlier in the chat that their business has been terrific for December. Mine is on pace, knock wood, for a record December. This is going to be my best year ever, barring a complete collapse here in the last 2 weeks, which I suppose anything is possible, but it has been really, really good. It's been good across most platforms. I took a quick peek at my business across all platforms. I'm up On eBay, I am up significantly on Etsy, which has been fantastic here in Q4. As you would probably expect, I am down on Mercari, though it's not a huge amount. And I remain hopeful that when they make their fee changes, things will rebound. This past week, where they've been doing their no service fee, I've had the most orders I've had on Mercari in months. So that is encouraging. Now that 10% fee, at least for this time window, has been waived, which will be permanently moved back to the sellers on January 6th. That's encouraging that transaction volume, at least for me, has been up on Mercari so far during that promotion. Media Picker says Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and same to all of you. It is about that time. I will do the regular show. There will be the Monday podcast with the reselling news and the what sold segments. That will still come out on Monday as scheduled. But a reminder, this will be the last Wednesday live until January the 8th. Commerce Dave, what's the lag with your whatnot funds between your show and eventual payout? So until you've achieved a certain level, you have to wait until the item is delivered before those funds become available to you. So I have a box of books right now, for instance, going to Puerto Rico that will probably take a while to get there. So those funds won't be available for quite some time. But other than that, they show, other than tips, they show in your current balance immediately, but they're not available for withdrawal until the delivery is made. Then those funds become available. Once you've achieved a certain level, and I can't remember what it is, there's a dollar level, and you've got to have a certain customer service rating percentage and or have made a certain number of sales. I want to say it's 1,000 pieces, 1,000 transactions. Then you're available for early payout, and you can get your money as soon as the sale is completed, notwithstanding whether it's been delivered. So it does change eventually. But right now, it's at least a week or 10 days waiting for the item to get delivered here in the U.S. Den Decor Depot, Merry Christmas, and see you next year. Absolutely. Opera Annie, hello. Good to see you. Thanks, Ryan. I'm going to have to rewatch this live video. Lots of good info that I need the time to absorb. I appreciate that. And as always, if you have questions, feel free, leave them in the comments. Feel free to message me over on Instagram at GalaxyCDsRocks or email me directly, galaxycds@gmail.com. I make an effort, as some of you know, to answer every question that I get. So don't hesitate. If I don't know the answer, I'll either try to find it or I'll just tell you I don't know. I had a boss once that told me that I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer, and that has also stuck with me for my life. How do the pirate ship points work? Well, that's just on my credit card. That's nothing that Pirate Ship is doing. You could do the same thing by paying with a credit card on eBay or ShipStation. I know some sellers that use their PayPal account with a credit card attached to it to buy shipping labels on eBay. It's just my particular credit card offers. It's through Fidelity, so I get money back on my investment account that I just can invest in more stocks or mutual funds. But it adds up to a pretty significant amount. But that's the credit card company. That's nothing. Pirate Ship doesn't do anything like that. They don't have an affiliate program, which if they did, I obviously would be plugging it all the time because I love their service. When eBay was having all those problems last week, when Mercari labels were down, I was just shipping away over on Pirate Ship. So not to say they never have technical problems. They have had their issues, but they don't offer any kind of incentive structure beyond the discount on shipping. Judy, Stop and Shop, are you able to use Pirate Ship for Etsy, Whatnot, and eBay, or just Etsy and eBay? Whatnot, as I said, they generate their own labels, so you have to use their label. They've accepted the payment. They've paid for the label, so you just print theirs and affix it to your package and move on with life. You're not able to use third-party shipping. Etsy is a bit of a tough one because they recently disabled third-party integration with anybody but I believe it's ShipStation and maybe Ship-O. They used to have a ton of third-party integrations, including Etsy, and they have since shut that off. If you had integration turned on and active, it remains on until such time as it disconnects, which it does do on occasion. So you're kind of grandfathered in, and you can use Pirate Ship with Etsy. But once that integration drops, you could still use it, but you'd have to manually copy and paste the information from Etsy into Pirate Ship, and then take the tracking number and copy that back over to Etsy, which is probably, when my integration breaks, what I will do. That's how Mercari works. Mercari does not currently offer integration. Again, the ability for me to do everything on one platform, and with the exception of Whatnot Now, get one scan sheet to take to the post office, is why I continue to use Pirate Ship, in addition to obviously the credit card for the points. But I would do that probably the same anyway if I was over on eBay, because that's the same account that's tied to my PayPal. Chuck Witt, happy holidays, and as always, great content today. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Den Decor Depot had to go to Dynamic Promoted to get eBay moving, but it's flowing good. Etsy has been a godsend. Yeah, like I said, Etsy for me, especially here in Q4, has just been, relatively speaking, insane. It's not eBay numbers. eBay, I'm still doing 80 to 100 transactions a week. Etsy is less than 20, but there was a time where Etsy was 4 or 5. So 20 is a massive, massive increase, and I will definitely take it. 5W and Hall just figured out the Venmo coupon threshold is $50, so I'm increasing my $49.99 items to $50 so they get $5 off. Perfect. See, and that is a classic example of taking advantage of opportunities as sellers to know something that's going on, do the research, figure it out, and find a way to profit off of it. Here, you raise your price by a penny, the customer saves $5. You are likely to make more sales and make the same amount of profit had you not made any change. That is absolutely outstanding. Judy, Stop and Shop, thank you. You are quite welcome. Big Dre, my total sales are up 188.5% year over year. Net sales up 116. ASP up 41.2 year over year. That also gets some applause. Those are big, big, big increases. Congratulations. That is awesome. Hollywood Reseller, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Thank you. Recommerce Dave, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year's. Thanks for all your effort. It is greatly appreciated. And as I say every show, thank all of you for coming out, for participating in the chat, for leaving comments and sharing the main podcast. We're starting to get close to 2,000. I think I need 50 or 51 subscribers on YouTube to get to 2K, which is a number that, I guess, if you compare me to Mr. Beast, is insignificant. But for me, 2,000 subscribers is a number I thought I would never get to. I can remember being at 20 and being like, oh my God, 100. There's no way. Media Picker says, congratulations, Big Dre. See, I cannot swear. Harry P, 1,500 items on Mercari, less than one sale a day, toys and video games. Help. I wish I had the answer for you. I've got... Man, I think it's close to 9,700 items on Mercari, and I'm averaging maybe 3 sales a week over there. Now, I'm in the books category primarily, which is not super strong on Mercari, to be completely fair. But they're struggling. They have always struggled to generate kind of transactions. It's been one of the reasons they've tried all of these different things, from changing fees to various incentives to get people to list, offering you a coupon to list X number of items. And they just continue to really struggle to get traction with getting people to go to the site and make purchases. As I said earlier, I'm hopeful that once the transaction fee situation changes and the customers are only obligated for the whatever it is, the 2.9% or 3.6%, whatever they're doing, and that 10% goes away and moves over to the seller side, that people will be more inclined to make purchases there, and that things will return to somewhat of a normal state over there. I know a lot of sellers that say they are just doing super, super well on Mercari. I'm not one of them. Again, even with a massive number of listings, I'm not getting a lot of traction over there. Again, it's free to list, so I don't mind to put them over there and just see what happens. But yeah, it is very, very tough on Mercari, unfortunately. Big Dre says, thank you, Hollywood Reseller. Harry P, thank you for the awesome info. That's crazy. Media Picker says, I swear all the time, especially while working. Yes, absolutely. So I completely understand that. Again, thank you all for coming out today. If you haven't, please do me a favor before you leave and hit that thumbs up button. I would appreciate it. And the YouTube algorithm would also appreciate it. With that, my friends, I hope everybody has a terrific Christmas holiday season. Have a great New Year's. Again, hope business has been fantastic. Hope it continues to be throughout the next couple of weeks. And we will see you in January. Thank you, everybody. And now it's time to sell.